Let's try that again. Good evening. Shalom. Welcome wherever you are, whatever time of the day you are. We is. I think here it's about 8:30 at night here in Israel, in Efrat, the community where we live. By you, it could be about 1:30 or anywhere in between or sideways. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Delighted to have you. And today we're continuing our discussion of Pirkei Avot, which means the ethics of the fathers. I just wanted to mention that this is not a course per se. This is not something that you need to know what happened last week. Gee, maybe I missed something. Every one of these lessons stands on its own. It's its own separate lesson of teachings from Pirkei Avot, ethics of the fathers. And today we are looking at chapter 1, Mishnah 2, meaning teaching number 2. And this happens to be a very, very popular saying amongst the Jewish people. It refers to a great sage of ours named Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik, literally Shimon the righteous. And Shimon HaTzadik was one of the last joining members of what we called a few sessions ago, the Anshe Knesset HaGadola, which means the men of the Great Assembly. They were very, very important and influential in our Jewish history. Shimon HaTzadik has his own stop on the train in Jerusalem. That's what they announced, Shimon HaTzadik. And why do they have that train stop? Because it's right near his burial place, right outside of Efrat in Jerusalem. So who was he? A little bit something about him. Shimon HaTzadik served for 40 years as the high priest after the scribe Ezra. How do you like that? There were many miracles that were done for him in the Holy Temple, too many to describe right now. One of the great things that Shimon HaTzadik, Shimon the righteous, did, he persuaded Alexander the Great to desist from conquering the land of Israel, saving all of us at that time from terrible persecution. After the sudden death of Alexander the Great, Shimon HaTzadik, that we're talking about, we haven't heard his lesson yet. Shimon HaTzadik, after Alexander the Great died, he became the uncontested spiritual and political leader of Israel. So that was right after Alexander the Great, who was followed, of course, by Alexander the Okay, who was followed by Alexander the Decent, who was followed by Alexander the Mediocre, and finally Alexander the who needs him? Anyway, I don't know a whole lot about Jewish history at that time, but I think because he was kind to Israel, it caused many families at that time to name their kids Alexander like Alexander. Now I still hear people being called to the Torah, gentlemen being called to the Torah by the name Alexander Ziskin. So apparently this has perpetuated itself. Anyway, Shimon HaTzadik said this very popular teaching, and it became a popular song. It really represents an interesting outlook on life. And here's what he said, okay? Shimon HaTzadik finally said the following. Said not to the following, he said the following. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. The world stands on 3 things, but we understand it as the world stands on 3 pillars. 3 pillars. So imagine like a tripod. Imagine a stool that at the very top of the tripod, at the top of the stool, there is the world. The world stands on 3 pillars. But before we get into the 3 pillars, I just wanted to make mention of the fact that his teaching is introduced by the words Hu Haya Omer, which literally means he used to say. Hu Haya Omer, he used to say. What did he used to say? The world stands on 3 things. We'll talk about what those 3 pillars are. There was a rabbi called Rabbi Aharon Shmuel of Koidanov. It's somewhere in between Manhattan, Baltimore, Stanford. No, it's not. I guess it was Koidanov. Where is Koidanov? Present-day Belarus. You know Bela. Do you know where Belarus is? Okay. Was it part of the old Soviet Union? Thank God this is not a geography class. Wow. Anyway, Rabbi Shmuel of Koidanov, he lived from 1614 to 1676. And here's what he had to say about this phrase, Hu Haya Omer. he used to say. He said, the great thing about Shmuel HaTzadik, Shimon HaTzadik, he used to say, Hu haya omer. This is what the rabbi of Koidanov said in Hebrew, Hu haya, which means literally he was, and then the word omer, and then he would say. So what does that mean? It means to say, and I don't know if the Rebbe of Koidanov said it only about Shimon HaTzadik or about many of the sages quoted in Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers. He said that the genius of the sages is first, Hu haya, means they were their teaching. They lived their teaching. They became a symbol and an embodiment of what they were going to teach. But they weren't ready to teach it yet until they lived that value. Isn't that interesting? After they lived that value, after Hu haya, he was that value, whatever he was going to teach, then Omer, then he would say it, then he would teach it. But he didn't want to be a hypocrite. He didn't want to behave in one way and teach in another way. He wanted to be a do as I do, not do as I say. And how could he be that? Because he did what he was eventually going to teach. He was consistent in his teaching and in his behavior. So what did he say? He said that the world rests on three pillars. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. The world stands on these three things or three pillars. So interesting use of the word ha'olam. Basically he's talking to Jewish people, although at the same time, anybody who's listening can certainly, Jewish, not Jewish, whatever you are, whatever religion, whatever, everybody can gain from the following teachings of Shimon HaTzadik. But it's interesting that he says that the world stands on three things. He didn't say the Jewish world stands on three things. He seems to indicate that this is like a universal lesson for everybody in the world, that the world in general, made up of people of many faiths and beliefs, the world in general stands on these three things. So would you be interested to know what these three things are? Many of us already know them because we've heard them often enough that it's kind of been ingrained in our teachings. The world stands on three things. Here they are. Sports. I'm kidding. He wouldn't say that in the mid-350s before the Common Era. He said the world stands on three things. HaTorah, which means the study of the Torah. We'll talk about that. Avodah, which means either worship or actual work. Avodah, to do work, to be contributing into the world. And the third one, he says, is Gemilut Chasadim, which is the idea of doing acts of kindness, charity, good deeds, being selfless. So this is what Shimon HaTzadik says. The world stands on three things. And again, according to the Rebbe of Koidanov, he first lived these values, and then he taught about these values, and he created lessons about these values. He didn't feel he could teach it until he was it, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful commentary. So, now the world stands on three pillars. Some would say that the world is standing on three endeavors, three important endeavors, not only for Jewish people, but for all people, and especially for people of faith. The first question we want to ask is, why three? So, for example, if I said to you, okay, you, whoever you are, I see there are several people watching, I appreciate it, and I thank you for that, for participating tonight, today, whatever time you are, wherever you are. If I were to say to you, the world stands on how many things? Just name a few things that the world stands on, important values. So what would you say? Love, faith, cereal? Maybe not. But I think we could come up with more than three. We could come up with 10, 20. Aren't there enough values, beautiful values in the world that the world would stand on? I would say there could be 30, 50. So a good question is, why does he say that the world stands on only three pillars, three legs, if you will, three supports? For example, I would rather sit in a chair with four legs I would rather, if I was to use a cane, I would want a cane, the new kinds of canes with those little, like the 4 prongs. Used to be the cane had only that one pole, and then maybe a 2 or 3, but one with 4 prongs at the bottom, I would feel more sturdy and stable with that. Let me tell you, an 18-wheeler truck is more stable than a 3-pronged anything. So why 3? That's the question a lot of the rabbis answer. Couldn't he have come up with more values? The answer is, of course he could. He was he was the high priest for 40 years in the temple. And the answer that the rabbis give, why does he say only 3 things? It means to convey exactly what we are saying. Because when it's only 3 things, we're talking about something that's like a stool or a tripod or something else that's very, very rickety or something else that's very not so stable. And what does Shimon HaTzadik mean to say? That all 3 parts of what I just taught, that the world stands on the Torah, the world stands on Avodah, worship, and the world stands on Gemilut Chasadim, kindness, sacrifice, selflessness. Each of these pillars are equally important, meaning that, like a stool, you sit on a stool. Somebody would come over and say, hey, let me knock one of those legs out. And you say, if you do, I'll punch you because I'm going to be on the floor if you do that. Well, you wouldn't punch the person. But you're going to end up on the floor. A tripod is holding a camera, video camera, this kind of a camera that we're talking today. Somebody knocks out something out of that tripod, one of the 3 supports, the whole thing topples over and it's on the floor. So this is exactly, many commentators believe, this is exactly why he phrased it as a 3-pronged lesson. The world stands on 3 things, as if to say, if you knock one of these things out, the whole enterprise topples. Okay? For you Star Trek fans, the whole thing will topple, and we cannot sustain the world if we're only going to concentrate on either Torah or worship or making a living or doing kind acts of goodness, decency, and compassion. They all equally need our attention. That's the point of saying that it stands on 3 pillars or 3 supports. So let's talk about each of these individually and see where we get. So Shimon HaTzadik says that the world stands on the Torah. So what does that mean? Well, the definition that we've always had of Torah is the 5 books of Moses. The 5 books of the Torah, all the way from Genesis to the death of Moses in the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim. That classically has been the Torah. But the Torah is wider than that. The Torah is the entire Bible. The Torah includes the prophets, wisdom literature. The Torah has a wider application than just these 5 books of Moses. What could the Torah include? Works of great rabbis, works of great women scholars, all about faith and about history, the land of Israel, holidays. Nowadays, when we can't really get together for classes, so many people are on Zoom. The Torah classes that are on Zoom today is unparalleled. You know, I live in Efrat. I'm on many WhatsApp chat groups, that kind of thing. It seems like every 10 minutes there's another lesson, another Torah lesson to plug into. Does it mean it's only the 5 books of Moses? No, it's wider. Different things about Judaism. The Torah could be different things about whatever your religion is. To delve into it, to study it, to be interested in it, to be immersed in it. That would be the Torah. So some people study by themselves, some people study in pairs, some people actually go to lectures when, God willing, we'll be able to do that. Some people listen on Facebook Live, some people listen on Zoom, some people do Skype study. Whatever it is a much wider idea than just the 5 books of Moses. So in the Talmud, there's a teaching that says the following. At the end of 120 years, when we pass away, nobody leaves this world alive, unfortunately. When we pass away, we get escorted into a waiting room in heaven, God's waiting room. You get to read all those nice magazines from who knows when, highlights and all that kind of stuff. And in God's waiting room, they will hand you, chippering this up a little bit for you, but the Talmud says in the waiting room, it'll be like you're sitting there. They'll hand you one of those clipboards with a few questions, not as many questions as we get when we go to a new doctor, which is pages and pages. There's a few questions. One of the questions that will be asked in God's waiting room, I don't mean Florida, I mean God's waiting room eventually, is, I'll say it in Hebrew, then I'll say it in English. Kavata itim laTorah. Did you establish specific times for Torah study? Some will say, yeah, sure, I have 8 hours a day. Some will say, I don't know, it's like a half hour a day. Some will say, I just listen to Elon Adler once a week or twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, and that's 30 minutes each, give or take. That's an hour. Yes, I did an hour a week. But some people will say, no, I didn't. No, I didn't devote any time to Torah study. Shimon HaTzadik is telling us how important the study of the Torah is. I want to show you a book which is not Torah study per se, okay? This is a book by Rebbetzin Esther Jungreis. Do you see this? It's called Life is a Test. Why am I showing you this book? Rebbetzin Jungreis, I met her several times. This book is even signed by her. How do you like that? Rebbetzin Esther Jungreis. And the reason I'm showing you this book is because she wrote this book talking about how often she would meet with individuals or couples in her office in Manhattan and talk to them about their spiritual lives. So this is not a Torah book per se, but when she discusses all of the various counseling efforts that she had, and if you take the book, you'll see how rich it is that she keeps on mentioning episodes from the Torah that are relevant to whatever she's talking about at that moment with a couple, a single person, a family. This book, even though it's not the 5 books of Moses, is drenched with Torah knowledge and Torah substance. So, is this a study of Torah? And the answer is, on a great level, it is. It is. She keeps on including episodes from the Torah, episodes from our prophets, episodes from our history. So that's why I show you to, because it doesn't necessarily need to be exactly the 5 books of Moses, but the study of our wisdom. What does God want from us? How does he want us to behave? How do we improve, self-improve, spiritually and otherwise, by the study of the Torah? And this is what Shimon HaTzadik is saying, that one main pillar for us as Jewish people or people of faith is to study the main texts of our tradition. Study them, be inspired by them, be imbued by them, and eventually live by them. Because to study them and not necessarily live by them, not the best thing. The best thing is to live by the lessons that we study. So that's the first pillar, Torah. Very important. Avodah is the second pillar mentioned by Shimon HaTzadik that keeps the world up. Avodah literally means work. So some people say, what does he mean? What does Shimon HaTzadik mean by work? It's a pillar. It means that we need to do actual work. We can't just kind of sit around and wait for things to happen or wait for people, the community fund to help us get groceries and everything else and clothing and a place to live. No, we need a job. We need a career. We need a way to contribute to the world that God created in 6 days. And every time anybody does work or contributes something positive into the world, our rabbis tell us that they are contributing to the creation of the world. God set it up in 6 days, and now for the next thousands of years, we're contributing whenever we work, whenever we do something positive, when we make a living, when we have a career, when we volunteer. Maybe sometimes volunteering is the work. Maybe that's the work. Some people are independently wealthy, not me, and they can afford to spend their time in volunteer efforts. Great. That's also work. The other thing about work, or the word avodah, also means worship. So pillar number 1 is the study of our texts, Torah. Pillar number 2 is worship. To worship the God that created the world, created us. What does it mean to worship? Well, in the temple days, back when the temple stood in Jerusalem, And by the way, from our porch here in Efrat, we can't see the Western Wall. We can't see that. But we can see Jerusalem from our porch. I think one night I'm going to take you out onto our porch, or Mirpeset in Hebrew, and I'm going to show you the lights of Bethlehem, the lights of Jerusalem, and you are going to go, oh my gosh, how did they find this place? It really, every time I step out, day, evening, stunning, stunning. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, in the days of the temple, people offered sacrifices for different things. Sometimes they were animal sacrifices. Sometimes it was flour and oil for those who couldn't afford animals. Sometimes it was fragrant spices. And they would offer these sacrifices for various reasons. Perhaps to atone for something. Perhaps to ask for forgiveness, maybe. To thank God, to praise him. Maybe something was a peace offering. A peace offering. So there were many reasons why. One of the great things that happened when offerings were brought in the Holy Temple is that the smoke from the offering, even if it was a very, very windy day, the smoke from the offering always went up in a straight column towards heaven. That was one of the great miracles that happened in the Holy Temple. There were many different kinds of miracles. That was one of them. What was the point of that? The point of that was to create something here on earth that has a direct connection to God, a direct connection to heaven by that pillar of smoke or by that pillar of fire. So now, once the holy temples were destroyed, the last one in the year 70, the rabbis devised prayers. How do we get close to God now? Through prayer. And there are all kinds of prayers. Here's another book that I'm going to show you. So, Larry, you say that I'm being mirrored. Everything is backwards when you show the book. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. But this is called the Rabbinical Council of America Prayer Book. Okay. This I use every Shabbat morning. And look how thick it is. It's so thick. I think this has got over 1,000 pages. It's got over about 1,200 pages. Why is it so thick? Because it's filled with all kinds of prayers. It's filled with all kinds of blessings. It's prayers, morning, afternoon, evening prayers, holiday prayers, Shabbat prayers, high holiday prayers. All kinds of things are in this prayer book. Even blessings or prayers for a livelihood, special prayers for finding a spouse. There's even a prayer for going to the bathroom. That once we come out of the bathroom, I learned this lesson in Flushing, New York, many, many years ago. When we come out of the bathroom, there is a prayer that we say, and I'm going to read it to you, okay? I just want you to see the genius of many of our prayers. And this prayer book is filled, this Siddur is filled. Here's the prayer for after you come out of the bathroom. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who in your wisdom have formed man with a body made up of countless channels and conduits. You conduit. It is revealed and known before the throne of your glory that if these are torn or obstructed, we would be unable to survive and stand before you. Blessed are you, O Lord, who heals all flesh and works miracles. You know, the fact that we can go to the bathroom, how inelegant of me to say this, the fact that we can go to the bathroom and accomplish what we need to accomplish is no small miracle. The tubes, the ducts, openings, closings. Literally, the prayer says whatever should be closed is not open, and whatever should be open doesn't close. Okay? I think you get it. Anyway, the prayer book is filled with all kinds of prayers and blessings. There's a blessing when you see a rainbow. There's a blessing when there's thunder, blessing for lightning, blessing for various kinds of flowers, blessings for all kinds of natural events. There's even a blessing that you say when you see the head of state of the United States, Israel, whatever. It's a blessing I've personally recited a few times. I've been blessed to see, I'm not sure how or why, blessed to see several United States presidents. And each time I did, I would say this blessing before shaking their hand. So far we have these two pillars. I've got another 5 minutes left. And so far we have two pillars, Torah. The world rests on these three pillars. Torah, the study of the Torah, study of sacred texts of Judaism, whatever faith, study of those texts to show us how to live life maximally, how to behave, how to shape our character, how to refine our character, how to keep the various commandments that we have within the Jewish community and other commandments, teachings of other faiths. Avodah, either having a job, contributing to the creation that God started thousands of years ago, and whatever the job is, paid, unpaid, volunteer, well-paid, whatever, this is how we contribute to the world, how we contribute to creation. Or avodah could mean worship, making a connection between us here, down here, and God in heaven. Making that connection, praying, asking God for various things, praising him, and of course, thanking him for the many, many blessings. I will tell you, in our building, where I'm broadcasting from right now, we have an elevator. We're on the 6th floor, top floor. This is officially a penthouse apartment. Why? By virtue of it's a top floor of a six-story building. So we have an elevator. You step out of our house, our apartment, and boom, right there is the elevator. You don't even have to schlep. It's right there. So a couple of months ago, the elevator stopped in mid-course. We had to go pick up somebody. The elevator, you can't get any phone reception, and it was not very pleasant. We were in the elevator about 15 minutes with an owner who had a dog. The dog didn't bark, neither did the owner. Thank God. Why do I mention this? It's a good question. Yes, I mention this because ever since, this is good 2-3 months ago, ever since I go into the elevator now, and we're going down from 6 to 5 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2. Every floor I say to Hashem, to God, thank you for bringing me to the next floor. Thank you for bringing me to the next floor. When we get to 0, the lobby, I say, thank you, God, for opening this door. Because I've also been in our elevator once where the door did not open on the 6th floor. I'm there, but I can't get out. Not pleasant. So, avodah, prayer, worship, thankfulness, appreciation, recognition of who the strength and the might is in this world. And then we come to number 3, gemilut chasadim. Literally means kindness, good deeds, charity, benevolence, to climb out of ourselves and see the needs of others. I don't know how many of you have been recently to a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. I'm going to guess in the last 10, 15 years, there was this idea that a bar and a bat mitzvah, they have so much of the spotlight on them during their special occasion. When they either become 12 as a girl, 13 as a boy, some circles 13 as a girl. But there's so much of a tight spotlight on them. It's me, and it's about me, and it's all me. That congregations and rabbis and others felt it was a good idea for bar mitzvah kids and bat mitzvah kids to do a mitzvah project. Do something while you're studying for your special day that takes you out of yourself and has you looking not just at you, spotlight, it's my day, but also has you looking at other people. What are the needs of your community? What are the needs that surround you? And that's a very important part of what Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik is speaking about. Gemilut chasadim. What can we do for others? How is it that we can help others, be beneficial to others? It could be money. It could be a smile. It could be a touch. Somebody's saying, oh, I feel so terrible. And you go, well, we can't do that now unless you're related. But a touch is beautiful. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your grief. I'm so sorry for your loss. A touch on the face, whatever it is. These are all acts of kindness, which we call in Hebrew, gemilut chasadim. So once a person was called up by an organization in the community, and the person was asked for a donation. Can you please donate to our communal fund? And the person said, oh my gosh, charity? When it comes to charity, I stop at nothing. Well, they took him for his word. And then they checked the records of previous years, and you know something, he was absolutely right. When it comes to charity, he stops at nothing. That's right. He gave nothing and gives nothing. This is not a good model for us. Shimon HaTzadik would not have been happy with that. To give, selfless, freely. So these are Shimon HaTzadik's three pillars. Torah, study. Improving ourselves through the Torah, or whatever our faith texts are. Avodah, doing work, contributing to the creation that God started thousands of years ago. Avodah, worship, creating that connection between ourselves down here on earth and God in heaven. How do we do that? We do that through study, and we also do that through prayer. All kinds of prayers, asking God and thanking God for all kinds of things. Here is what Maimonides says, and then we will have to wrap up. Maimonides says, this is a little esoteric, but I like it, and I share it with you. Maimonides says, these three, Torah, worship or work, and doing acts of kindness and benevolence, these three are a prescription not only for personal spiritual success, but also cosmic success. Cosmic. For the world, global. This is a recipe for global success. What does he mean? He says, Rambam, Maimonides, through the pursuit of knowledge, which gains us the wisdom of right and wrong, various other kinds of wisdom, through prayer to a higher power, acknowledging that we're not the be-all and the end-all, and looking out for others, acts of kindness, generosity. Through all these three, says Maimonides, the entire world will achieve a balanced perfection. It's not just for us personally. The entire world is going to achieve a certain kind of a balanced perfection. Last thing I want to close with, and I know I'm just a little bit over, so I really apologize. It says in the Torah that when you give to somebody who is in need, it says, in Hebrew, I'll translate, Patoach tiftach et yadecha. You shall surely open. Patoach tiftach. Sounds like the same word? It is. Means to open. You shall surely open your hand to the poor, to the needy. So many of the Torah commentators say, why does it use that word twice? Why didn't you say, open your hand? Open your hand, that's enough. Thou shalt surely open thy hand. Or in translate, thou shalt surely openest thy handeth. You know, one open would be enough. So one commentary, and with this will end, says no, there's a point to the you shall surely open, patoach tiftach, means that you must open your hand. Why? Watch this. This is so interesting the first time I saw it. When you close your hand, you see that all the fingers are at the same level. Okay? Which would lead one to believe that when you give, whatever you give to has the same level of value or importance. Giving to the poor down the block, giving to your poor neighbor, saving the whales, naming a star in honor of somebody that just celebrated a special day. Can you see how here they're all on the same level? And it would lead one that if your hand is closed, it would lead you to believe that anywhere you give has equal need and equal value. But what does the Torah say? Patoach tiftach. When you give, you must open your hand. What happens when you open your hand? You see that there are different levels of giving. Each type of giving has its own level of importance, and they are not equally important. So, Gemilut Chasadim, when we give, we have to give carefully. Hard-earned money, hard-earned time, we're going to volunteer. We have to be very careful about where we give and just realize that they're not all the same. They may sound all the same, equally compelling, but they're not. So we have to open our hand and not close them, revealing different levels of value and different compelling natures of different kinds of charity. So, dear people, this is where we end. And so we're reminded to connect with God, to connect with others, connect with ourselves, and each of these three pillars helps us to do that. Torah helps us to connect with ourselves, self-improvement, self-polishing. Avodah, worship, our relationship between ourselves and God. Gemilut Chasadim, relationship between us and other people. We are instructed in this lesson how to help all three relationships, me and me, very important, me and others, me and God. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I wish each of you a wonderful day, and God willing, we'll see you next week or Wednesday night when we talk about 5 Derech Eretz lessons from the weekly Torah portion. Thank you. Be safe, be well, be healthy. Appreciate your joining us tonight. Take care, everybody. Shalom.